intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Psychics. I'm Mary Amy. This is Michael Edley, and here we are, episode 55. It's June 12th, and tonight we're speaking about brainwaves, and we have a guest, Patrick Ward, who is a neuroplastician. So, Michael, how are you tonight? Here we are in June, and you've shaved, you can see.
I'm clean shaven.
Wow.
A little shift, yes. Clean shaven. It's been a while. My wife didn't recognize me. But it's been a very, very interesting week, to say the least. And those of you out there that know me or have been to one of my events over the last week or so kind of know what I've been going through, and it's been pretty wild. So anyone out there, I'll share with you, my mother, Candace Edley, she had passed away this week, and it was pretty wild circumstances. She has been dealing with some health issues for a while, but she wasn't feeling good. They rushed her into the hospital. She had an aneurysm. Unfortunately, the aneurysm burst, and they could not save her, so she did not leave the operating room. Very, very tragic situation. And as a medium, a lot of people, I think, want to understand, how the medium's mind works and how we deal with grief, and it's a very interesting perspective. So what I can tell anyone is, we have to allow ourselves to deal with, sit with, and embrace grief in any way it starts to uprise through our body. And we have to feel it, and we have to sit with it. If we try to push it down, if we try to run from it, it's the worst thing we can do, because that can cause this chaotic imbalance in our energy. And what I can tell you is, no matter what type of grief you're going through, no matter what the situation is, and I'll share, as I discuss this a little farther, I'll just discuss all the details around it, or the details, so you can see how crazy of a situation it was. And the one thing that kept coming to me, I needed to let go. One thing when we're dealing with grief is when we try to hold and control every moment of every situation in this period of grief, we lose control. So one of the most powerful things we can do is actually let go and free ourselves from the ego and the control, and allow whatever emotions that are going to uprise through us and flow through the chakra system, that are going to permeate through our auric field. We need to feel that. We need to allow that to process. And in that process, and no matter what type of grief, and no matter how debilitating or how catastrophic you feel that grief is, we all process it in our own way. And there is no right or wrong way to process it. But what I can tell you in my own life, what I've learned from grief, and I've dealt with pretty extensive grief through most of my life. Like, at this point in time, I don't have family left. I have a brother, and I have, niece and nephews, but legitimately any of my elders, any of my family lineage, they're gone. And it's a very interesting perspective. And in that shift of not having that physical contact, what I noticed immediately is literally my psychic senses, my mediumship, my mediumship connections, everything almost compounded. When I kind of let go and I didn't try to control, I immediately started connecting with my mom's energy. And as an evidential medium, I need validation. And just as if you come to me being the evidential medium I am, the scientific research medium, I'm going to bring through the evidence, or I hope to bring through the evidence. I hope to bring through the names and the dates and the crucial information, the evidence, and validate they're there. And then from that, we can try to bring through closure, healing, whatever messages, whatever needs to come through in that session. And I had to take my own advice, and I had to follow through. And what I could say is I'm blessed to be doing the work that I'm doing, because it prepares me for these moments. And no one could prepare for losing a parent. But I can tell you, when we proactively work with this energy, some of the most amazing shifts can happen in grief. I could tell you, out of things I'm manifesting, things I'm trying to accomplish, goals I'm trying to hit and create. The crazy thing is there's been several things over the last 3 years that I've kind of released, and I was manifesting them, see what would come from them. And some I'd let go, and I didn't think any, maybe nothing would come from them. Maybe certain things would. And I could tell you in this moment of grief and in this past week, I had 5 extremely crucial manifestations come to pass. And I mean, things that are going to have a major, significant, positive impact in my life and in those around me in the most positive way. So in the moments of grief, we can still find ways to transcend through that, but we have to let go, and we have to allow the grief and the pain and anything we feel around that. We have to process it. And in those moments, our collective, our guides, our angels, our loved ones in spirit, they're all going to gather around, and they're going to try to uplift and support us in any way they can. So we have to be that conduit. We have to be that conduit and let that energy flow. And for me, it was one of the most amazing experiences of immediately connecting to my mom's energy, and getting validation that I could actually confirm within like a 48-hour period that, wow, this is absolutely crucial, validating evidence that I have connected to her. I know I'm connecting to her. Now I can open up this energy link, and and we can see where this is going. We can create this new relationship, this new bond. And that helped release a lot of the grief around it, and different pain and things I was feeling. So I did not see her before she passed. I did not speak to her before she passed. I spoke to her on Mother's Day. And the crazy thing as a medium, before Mother's Day, several days prior, and, I spoke to my wife, and I had this crazy conversation. I don't normally talk about people, death, and dying when I'm in a session. I don't believe there's a good purpose to that. If someone's going to pass, and as a medium, you understand and that, I believe in that moment, you would do that person a complete disservice to tell them you're going to pass in the next 48 hours. And there could be so many variables. So I would never personally do that. But in my own life, I knew my collective was showing me my mom was pretty sick, and she was gonna, something was happening, something was shifting around her. And it was weird because I went out of the way to do a special arrangement. I have friends of mine that own a flower shop, and I wanted to do something very special and nice for her. And they created the most beautiful bouquet. And I wanted to get her something different than anybody else would have gotten her in the past, or what I've gotten, or, candy or different things. And it's funny because, that was one of the things. She told me how beautiful it was. We spoke, we had a great conversation. And then it was like, all right, we'll catch up in a couple of days. Maybe I'll try to come over. She was kind of house ridden with oxygen and different things. So she was having a hard time as it was because of some prior. It was a rough year for her, and she had a massive heart attack, almost passed on the operating table. Several months back, and crazy situation. So I could tell you, I understand this, and I understand the grief of not having that closure at the moment of passing, or knowing, could I have been there for someone, or could something have changed, or could something have shifted? I understand that energy completely when someone's sitting across from me. And I understand that pain and all the energy and emotions that can stir up inside of us. But what I can tell you is when we let go, the most amazing things can manifest and process through grief. And I would have to say that, I'm the prime example of that, because literally, like I said, in this past week, 5 things, and 3 of them I kind of let go, and I just let create a life of their own. And I wanted to see maybe something would come of it, maybe not. But I've shared some of that stuff with Mary Amy. We had a great conversation over the weekend. We spent about an hour conversing about this and talking about it. Didn't know if I was going to speak about this tonight, or how I was feeling, or how I was sitting, but I felt I needed to. Before I got on the air, I feel in my soul I'm being called to talk about this. So I wanted to share that. And just as a medium, it's sometimes it's hard for us to take our own advice. And I think, like anyone, sometimes we have to take a step back, and we have to process everything, and we have to allow ourselves that time to just feel whatever it is that we need to feel, and process it in any way. And again, like I said, no one processes grief the same, and there is no right or wrong way to process it. But when we can embrace it and try to utilize it to uplift us, rather than it being something that consumes us and debilitates us, it can be one of the most powerful energetic cycles that you ever enter into. And it can be one of the most amazing times for manifesting the most powerful forces into existence. And I'm telling you firsthand, I've literally seen that this week on 5 separate things. And it's just been unbelievable. So anyone out there that's dealing with grief, that's dealing with the loss of, of a parent, of a sibling, uh, the one thing I can tell you is it is a personal, intimate thing you must embrace and you must go through. So whatever external noise, input, people, stuff that's going on, you need to just shut that out for a moment, and you need to sit with it. You need to sit with the energy of it, and you need to allow it to flow through you. And, that would be the one thing I would say is let go and don't try to control the situation. A lot of times the ego comes in and wants us to control everything. And that's the human side of us talking. We need to let go, and we need to allow our soul, the love and the wisdom of our divine self to process and embrace all that grief. And in that, some of the most magical things can happen. And, that's truly what it is.
I feel very, I'm sad. I'm sorry that this happened. And there's a lot that I'm feeling. I definitely have concern for you. And I just got a wave of like how, strong the relationship and with your mother, the ties that you had with your mother. I felt that like like real stuff. And you're very brave to share this tonight with everyone. And I can see it's something you have to take moment by moment. And
and it just to just share another piece of this, just so people can understand the impact and and how major this was. So the last week, I had quite a few events going on. And those of you that know me know, I'm a medium and I'm also a musician. And that's my life. That's what I do. I'm a medium and a musician. And truly, in both of those, there's so much positive energy that we're giving to others. And I love that. And I love being of service. And what I can tell you is in these moments, we could truly find who we are. And I was doing a lot of readings this week. I had some of my medium events, but then I had a big musical event, huge event over the course of the day, probably in front of, several hundred to 1,000 people. And major event, major speakers involved. I was part of the musical team, very intricate part. And literally at 8 a.m. in the morning, we show up for sound check, and we sound check through. I get out of sound check. We had 10 or 15 minutes of downtime, finish my coffee, and literally I have a phone, a message come through, and here I am about to get on stage, in front of hundreds of people, and I get the call that my mother passed. Earlier before, and they had to rush her to the hospital, and no one could get through, and and she didn't leave the hospital, and I had to sit with that energy and feel that energy and feel that grief and that pain in the moment before I was about to step on stage in front of hundreds of people. And I had to make that choice. I was going to let go, and I was going to surrender to God and allow it to process in whatever way. And that's what I told myself, Mike, you need to be here. You are a crucial part of what's going on today. And there's so many people counting on you, and you have to be here. And, and I just let go. And that was the process. It was surrender and allow it to flow. And in that moment of surrendering, it was one of the most powerful moments of my life. And seriously, the energetic shift that happened in that moment was absolutely amazing. And I was feeling grief and pain. And, I was on a roller coaster throughout the whole day, but I had some really, really good people around me, really, really close friends, and just some really good energy. And these people that were around me really supported me and just showed me the love and the care family, and it really supported me. And surrendering in that moment, it was one of the most powerful things that I could do. And anyone out there listening, I would recommend, if you're dealing with that grief or that pain or that trauma, surrender it. Don't try to control it, and you will absolutely see a massive shift happen.
Okay. I'm going to move on to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to move on to.
Yeah. I wanted to share my story,
I'm very,
and you know what? We're going to shift. And
I'm
this is,
glad you did.
look at, my energy now is honoring those in spirit, honoring my loved ones, honoring my mom through what I do and how I carry myself. And I think that's how we should all approach it. And grief is so tough, and it's processed in so many different ways. But if we can honor those in spirit, that's absolutely the best thing we can do, for any of them and for us.
Your mom was
So,
very supportive of you, because when we started this podcast, she would call every week. And she got through a few times, and then you told me her number, and I kept bringing her on to get a reading.
funny stuff.
You said, I think that's my mom again, because she loved to listen to the show. So in the very beginning of this, when we just did on Blog Talk, your mom would call in. So tonight, it's about brainwaves, and we have a neuroplastician who's going to come on in a few minutes. But before he comes on, I want to share some positive things. I wanted to just mention, I wanted to talk about light for a minute, and then do a little mini meditation, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm up for meditation for sure.
Okay, so first I'm going to say there's a well-known Buddhist prayer, and it's called Generating the Four Immeasurables. May everyone be happy. May everyone be free from misery. May no one ever be separated from their happiness. May everyone have equanimity, I can't even pronounce it, free from hatred and attachment, which means composure and calmness. So it's positive, right? Okay. And then I'd like to mention about light. Okay. And I always speak of white light, and I even wrote a little book called The White Light Prophecies. And so white light is the space within the universe where positive energies are stored, and you can call on white light upon anytime. Anyone can call upon it, not just healers and empaths and mediums and intuitives, for protection from negative energy. So I just imagine white light circling me. And then I usually, when I'm doing a healing, I do Reiki, but I also spin light around whoever my client is. And then it takes away negativity and darkness. So it will become a vibration. And I always speak about a ball of light. So when you put your hands together, you take it away from your body, you take a few inches apart, your palms, and you cup your hands like this, and you're creating a ball of light. So you can bring light into your auric field, your aura, and you can get rid of darkness, and this light will change you. You usually will feel some kind of sensation on the palms of your hand. Okay. So I wanted to do this little, before I get on to brainwaves and we have our guest, I wanted to do a little personal journey meditation. And it's a silent exercise, and you will help you tune into your mind, body, spirit. And this is a way to hear your inner voice. Now, everything that Michael spoke about earlier is related to how much he's connected to his mind, body, spirit, and he's able to do all this, and everything will come through for him, and he can hear his inner voice. So those of you out there, the listeners and our audience, maybe you're just beginning to tap into your inside, your inner voice, your inner being, and you can do that through meditation. Okay. So everyone, I'd like you to close your eyes and get into a comfortable position. And I'm going to remind you to put all your weight in your bottom. And let's ground ourselves. So we imagine our feet going down into the earth like they're roots of a tree, and they're going deep down into the earth. And they're and they are grounding you so that you are not all up in your head and having wandering thoughts. You're just grounded and you're in the moment and you're having gratitude for the moment. So we're in the moment. I know it's a lot, and I'd like you to relax your body. So you're going to relax your arms and your legs. You're letting go of the breath. You know, by the end of the day, we all are holding on to a lot because we have so much that we're doing. And let's let go. Let's try to let go. So we let go of any energies and we let them travel out down our arm, through our fingertips. We're moving our head around. And again, we're having gratitude. Okay. Now, when I normally say to do this, we have no electronics, but since this is a video, obviously you have that on. So you've relaxed all the parts of your body. You're focusing on your breath now. So you're inhaling and you're exhaling and you're focusing on your breath. Oh, now I'm hearing ringing in my ears. Okay, so now we're trying to remain in silence and having quiet within our body. So let's tune inward and realize, do we feel like our organs are relaxed? Do we feel like our heart is at peace? Is our heart rate slowing down? And again, let out a breath. Take in a breath, hold it, let out a breath. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to imagine, or maybe you are outside, I'd like you to imagine a fresh breath of air you're inhaling. Okay, you're inhaling a fresh breath of air, and maybe you're having a breeze wash over you. Okay, this is a little bit of you doing some kind of visualizing, right? So you're imagining fresh air from nature, a breeze is washing over you, and now you're standing by a body of water, and you choose what that is. And you see this body of water. Is it a lake? Is it the ocean? Maybe it's a waterfall, a pond. Okay, so you're breathing the air. You're imagining fresh air brushing across your face. And now you see this body of water. I'd like you to see all its blueness. And I'd like you to imagine that you're standing in this water and you can feel the cold water on your feet. You have bare feet in this water. And now I'd like you to look down into the water and see your reflection. Okay, so you're taking all this in with your senses, right? Your sense of touch, your smell, you're feeling it, you're hearing it. And as you look down in your reflection, I'd like you to ask your future self to see your future self. Okay? And you're pausing and you're looking at your future self in this reflection of the water. And now I'd like you to ask, what is needed to make your dreams come true? You're asking your future self, what do I need? And I'm going to be quiet because you're going to listen for a response. You're staying in the moment. You're feeling the cold water on your feet. You're seeing your future self. So you're listening to it. And as you listen to this, how do you feel emotionally? How are you feeling? Is this something you're happy about? Are you content? Are you concerned? What are you feeling? What are your emotions? So I'm gonna allow a few minutes to reflect on what you're feeling about what your future self has said. Okay. So stay in that moment. I'd like you to remember this after you open your eyes. All of the information you received. I'm not going to count backwards. 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's something to think about, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
good. Get
Is it
into
good?
the balance. The balance.
Yes, we're getting some balance. After we speak with Patrick tonight, I'm going to share with you if we have upcoming guests. We have a lot of upcoming guests. Okay, so he's going to come on in just a few minutes, and I will explain to you who Patrick is. But before he does, I'm going to speak about brain waves. And what are brain waves? So I did my research. They're communication of neurons. A current produced by brain waves are electrical currents that travel along neurons and brain circuits. Neurons produce an electrical pulse. So there's an oscillation measured, and that's a frequency. So 30 cycles per second up to 100 cycles, known as Hz frequency, Hertz frequency. So you can measure brain waves with an EEG, an electrical brain wave, and I can't pronounce what this is. It's an electroencephala. I have like a learning disability thing. Okay. So there's 5 types. There's my excuse. I'll never be able to pronounce anything. So there's 5 types of brain waves. And one brain wave pattern is dominant during a task, an action, or an experience. So gamma waves, I'm just going to run through the 5. Gamma waves is heightened perception, memory, and processing thoughts. And that is a range of 40 hertz to 100 hertz. So if you have too much gamma waves, you have anxiety and stress. And if you have too little, you have depression and maybe ADHD. So how do you improve your gamma waves? You want to meditate, okay? And here we are. And that's positive, isn't it? So beta waves are 12 hertz to 40 hertz. And that is your logical thought. You're conscious, you're awake. It helps you to complete tasks. And you can be stimulated by coffee and soda. Caffeine will stimulate your beta waves. So it can be too much adrenaline, right? You can have anxiety. Too much, you will be depressed and out of it. ADHD. And beta waves will help problem solve. Alpha waves, 8 hertz to 12 hertz. Block too much beta waves is called alpha blocking. Physical and mental relaxation. Okay, this alpha waves help with physical and mental relaxation. So too much, you're too relaxed, too little, insomnia. So I guess there's a strong balance. We use that word balance. Theta, and I know you know a lot about this, Michael, I'm sure. Theta waves is 4 to 8 hertz. So this is what I love, theta waves. Dreams, sleep, daydreaming, deep emotions, hypnotic, creativity, and your intuition is your theta waves. Okay, so that's a good place to operate, is 4 to 8 hertz. Now, too much is ADHD, you're hyper, too little, no emotional awareness. And the last one is delta waves, which is 0 hertz to 4 hertz. This will repair. This takes place while you're sleeping. Babies and kids are in delta waves often. It's when you're relaxed. It helps us to fully rest. It's when you will have natural healing. Too much learning problems, too little poor sleep. That's
What's interesting when you speak about the theta and the alpha, being a scientific research medium, if you go on to, my website or my Facebook, you'll see me with the EEGs and in the MRI tubes and everything. But what they found is into the theta, into the alpha, that 9 hertz seems to be the sweet spot where mediums seem to have the most conductivity between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. So 9 hertz, right. And it's funny, you talk about, either almost going into a dreamlike state, semi heightened. And it's interesting because a lot of people will talk about information coming to them right before they fall asleep, or, in that dreamlike state, or coming out of a dream. Certain things will come to them, and you're usually in that 9 hertz, or you're flowing through that 9 hertz frequency when you experience those occurrences. Yeah, so it's documented. I mean, it's, they've proven in the lab where these frequencies reside and their connection to these interconnected dimensions that are around us.
So then that, based on what you're saying, and I'd done videos about brainwaves and then I forget. So some of what I retain is so short-lived because you are getting so much. So what you're basically saying is when we're connecting to these other realms, we're connecting during theta waves and delta waves,
Well,
correct?
it would be so at 9 hertz. What is so we're actually, it would be in the process as we're kind of flowing through one and basic entering baseline of the other, but we're not primarily into the other formal frequency pattern yet.
So it's
So yeah, so
what hurts? What hurts? Because alpha
9 hertz,
9.
9 hertz.
So then
Yep.
that is alpha waves.
Alpha, yeah. So
Alpha
theta
waves.
into alpha, yeah. So you're in alpha, yeah. You're in alpha, but what they'll find is somewhere around 7 hertz,
Mhm.
you may start going into an altered state. 8 hertz, it may become a little stronger. You may still be pulled back, but when you go into full trance mediumship, you're at 9 hertz.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And even the smallest frequency vibration or the smallest shift can pull you out of that. So it's interesting when you see how interconnected the frequencies are. And we're going to actually be speaking about that pretty intensely on some upcoming episodes too. So
Are we? Okay.
stay tuned. Yes.
So we have Patrick Ward tonight. So Patrick Ward, this is going to be fascinating, isn't it? Okay. His website for everyone out there is www.healingmindshift.com. And you can go to his website and you can see what he offers, what he does. And I took this from his website. The intersection of spiritual awareness and neuroscience, healing personal traumas, guiding people through the process. And Patrick studied with Robert Monroe and Edgar Cayce. Interesting.
Mm.
He studied. He didn't study with, but he studied. The mind-body connection is powerful force. Our thoughts, emotions, subconscious beliefs don't just stay in the mind. They often manifest in the body. And he has an upcoming event in Maryland, Psychic Fair, September 14th. I wanted to tell everyone that, 2025. And I don't know, this is going to be all new to me. I don't know much about this neuroscience. And like I said, I don't know about the brain waves. I do know that there's certain things that can affect our brain waves. Like I say, you shouldn't have your router too close to you in your home, and you shouldn't
Gotta
sleep
watch that Wi-Fi.
next to you, right? You shouldn't sleep close to any of that. And then I get worried when people put the little things in their ears and it's affecting their brain waves. And they're like,
Cooking
what are
your
you talking
brain,
about? I
cooking
said,
your brain with those.
it's
Cooking
too
your brain with
close.
those waves. Yeah, those waves going into your earbuds. Earbuds are cooking and frying
I
everything
know,
in
that's what
between
I'm
them.
wondering about. Like,
Mine are corded. I do not use the wireless ones. Mine are corded. But
I don't
the
need that.
interesting thing, even like when we're talking about the pineal gland, and they've absolutely proven Wi-Fi. So if you look at like fluoride and basically a lot of the other heavy metals in your body, there's several different things, but fluoride is one of the biggies. But what they're saying is fluoride can be activated by the Wi-Fi, and it can cause the pineal gland to calcify. So crazy. Yeah. So, some really interesting stuff out there when you start looking at some of these, interconnected things. And yeah, so they're saying that, yeah, the Wi-Fi waves can affect the pineal gland. So, if you're feeling blocked or not getting that sign, turn off the Wi-Fi, make sure there's no fluoride in your water or your toothpaste. But, these are things we really have to look at, and we really have to, maybe take a deep dive in. I don't, what's interesting, growing up, I didn't have fluoride. My mom did not give me fluoride. Is that why, I'm an evidential medium? I don't know. Maybe it could be. But yeah, I didn't have fluoride. I whatever fluoride is in the water.
He's here.
I don't. Oh, yes, excellent, excellent. But yeah, watch out for that fluoride. Watch out for that Wi-Fi.
He's connecting to audio.
Connecting to audio. I see Patrick Ward's name.
Hi, Patrick.
There we go. Hello, Patrick. How are you?
I'm good. This actually isn't working. Let me just turn this off. It was working a minute ago. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
Where are you coming from?
Yeah.
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So you're at least on the East Coast, same side of the country as us. So that's good. Excellent. I'm wondering, sometimes we're talking to people and, it's 7, 8 o'clock here and it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning there. So
yeah.
It's good to have you in our time zone.
Yeah. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I shared with everyone your website, and I shared a little bit from your website on what you do. And like to, I mean, Michael, do you have a question before I ask him something?
No, I would just say, Peter, if you can just share with our listeners, give us, kind of the cliff notes of you, what you're doing. The cliff notes. Patrick, give us the cliff notes of what you're doing. Yeah, tell us a little bit of your background and about you.
So I do memory work with clients for people who have traumatic memories that have been weighing on them for a number of years. And the way that I do that is it's called memory reconsolidation. But basically that just means we light up the areas of your brain that's responsible for storing the information of the traumatic memory. And if we do it in such a way where you access that memory, and then I pivot your direction to something else using a directed focus technique, the brain will begin to update that area of your brain so that the traumatic memory starts to bother you less and less until eventually it doesn't bother you anymore. Excuse me. But the goal isn't really to just stop there. We also want to actually change the memory for some of them, not all of them, but for some of them, if the brain will accept that. Because if we don't, the brain will anticipate those events happening again in the future. So what we're trying to do is, make people be less anxious and less fearful of the future by changing what they experienced in the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Now, what was, I'm always curious of someone's story of what led them down this path to be where they're at now doing what they're doing. Now, obviously you're a healer, the energy around you is a natural healer, as a medium, I could see that energy around you. What did you experience this type of like a divine connection or an experience or something that put you on this path of trying to figure out the brain and the mind and the neuroplasticity, or what was the journey like? What was the journey that got you here?
I got into this work because I needed it. When I was a young man, I experienced a murder-suicide. And for years, the incident kind of controlled my behavior to a certain degree. So I started, going to talk therapy, but talk therapy was making things worse. And I actually understand the science of why that happened now. I'm not here to bash talk therapy. It has very many good purposes and usefulness, but for me, it made things worse. So I started going on a journey of trying to figure out well, what else can I do? And, I tried EFT. EFT didn't do anything for me. And I eventually stumbled upon the work of two people named Larry Nims and Robert Smith. But Larry Nims was, I believe he was going through cancer at the time. And he's passed away since, but Robert Smith, still around, still practicing. I got a session, and he knocked out that trauma very, very fast. And it was like a whirlwind. And he started a school. I decided to join the school, and I needed to know how he did it, right? And decided I wanted to become a practitioner after that.
So you had such a powerful experience working with that you knew that was kind of your calling, or that was something you could embrace and help others with. What was the energetic connection to that? What was that feeling around that?
The energetic feeling, it's hard for me to describe, but I would say that having been in such a dark place for so long and understanding how to come out of it, it's like, well, if I understand how to do this, why would I let other people stay there? Right.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of like, it's basically being called to work, and you're like,
Mm.
the world needs soldiers sometimes, and sometimes
Yeah.
you need a world of healers at the moment. So it's like, all right, let's go to work. Um, and it's pretty profound what can take place within a short amount of time. Like I was working with a woman who had been grieving over her divorce for a good 4 years. And she came to me, and normally I would like to do an intake because there are two kinds of people that come to me. They have issues and they don't know why they have issues.
Mm.
And then there are people who have traumas and they know exactly what's going on in their heads, right? So no need to do an intake for her. We just sat down and we got to work. And you know, it's really funny. In my work, we recognize memories as trance states. And so she was fine when she came to me. And when she sat down, and then suddenly she was furious, right? And so it's like, okay, she's definitely in the memory trance of anger.
Mm.
And we started, working on that. And suddenly, the anger faded away and went to grief. And then suddenly it spiked back up to anger. I'm like, oh, what did you do to yourself? What's going on inside your head? And, you know, she said to me, she's like, they lied to me. Her husband had cheated on her with her best friend. And she said, they lied to me. And, in my line of work, we recognize that, everything that comes out of a person's mouth is actually about them, no matter who they're talking about. It's always about them. And and I looked at her and I was like, and you lied to yourself too, didn't you? And when she started sobbing quietly and silently after that, but she just kind of nodded at me. She's like, yes, I've been lying to myself for years. But that whole healing experience, lasted maybe 30 minutes. And she'd been grieving over this event for 4 years. And within 30 minutes, using memory reconsolidation, we made it so it stopped bothering her. And, for that memory, has, like I said, like sometimes we actually change the story of the memory and sometimes we don't. And for that one, didn't need to change the story. We just kind of reframed it a little bit and said, when you think of this, I want you to be thankful because, for years you lied about how much you were in love with this man and they gave you an out and now you're free to live your life. And,
Mm.
since then she's been in a better place. So, the energy, again, like it's hard to describe, but pulling people out of their funk faster than they can ever imagine and leaving them in a better place. And these changes, they last. They're not temporary. They last. Like we're literally changing the brain. We're changing the information that's stored in the brain. And, within 30 minutes, she was good to go. So yeah, it's a wonderful job to have for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, that can seriously shift any kind of energy block. So that is that basically like is that what you would consider it? You're basically breaking down like an energy block in their mind, and or what? How would you describe that?
That's not really my expertise, but I will say that, everything is mind, right?
Yeah.
So if the mind's in a better place, then surely your chakras and your meridians are going to be in a better place too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes, I'll often go to like holistic fairs and psychic fairs. And um, what I've noticed is that most people there, like, yes, they're looking for healing and they're looking for healing in any avenue they can find it, right? They've tried other stuff and it just didn't work. And people often ask me like, will this clear my meridians? Will this clear my chakras? And I can only imagine yes. If we clear up what's actually caused the blockage, then absolutely. And yeah, I would think for sure that where the mind goes, the body follows. And
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
many
Absolutely.
aspects of the body for sure. There's energetic bodies and physical body as well. But if the mind's in a good place, absolutely, I would think the energy follows.
Mm. Now, how different is the process and procedure that you use for each each client that you have? Is it similar or is it pretty you know is it geared towards that person, or do you have the same process and procedure like baseline that you build upon, or how does it work?
Well, again, it depends on if they know what they need to work on. Uh, but generally, the process involves, putting them in that memory that's been causing them
Mm.
pain so long. The saying, what you resist persists is
Yeah.
absolutely true. But in my modality, we're not going there to understand it. We're not trying to,
Mhm.
make peace with what happened. We're actively going in and we're changing the story.
Mm.
Uh, so what I do is, like for the woman that I was talking about a moment ago, it's like, okay, go back to the moment where you discovered uh, his phone and you saw the correspondence
Mm.
between him and his girlfriend. Um, and so when she went there, she went full on into that memory. And so that part of her brain was lit up. And, the subconscious, it does not know the difference between past, present, and future. It only knows now. And
Yeah.
so, if I have a person go into that memory, that part of their brain is lit up and they're there. I mean, they're physically, they're wherever they are, but mentally they're there. And so once I have them associate with the memory and have it bother them, I can start the process of changing where that information is stored in their brain. This all, I'm sure you guys have done like self-hypnosis, like work, right?
Yeah.
And notice when like the hypnotist will say, okay, I'm going to count you up. And when I count you up, you're going to be fully awake, fully alert. But then when I count you back down again, you're going to go 2 times deeper, 2 times deeper. That process is called fractionation.
Mm.
And that works because of, the neurons lit up, they received that information and they went out. And so the next time you went in, that information was already there. So they're more effective and more efficient at doing the job that you taught them to do, right?
Mm.
Um, my process is actually the opposite of that. We call it defractionation. So instead of having you go, oh, well, first I'll put you in the trance of the memory and have you be there. But instead of going out to put you deeper, I go in and out, get out to pull you out of the trance of the memory. And as I do that, the neurons responsible for the information, for that memory start to change bit by bit until the original memory that was there is just no longer the same. It's not even remotely the same.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds like it could be such an amazingly powerful shift for someone that's experienced that trauma. Now, do you find, depending on the type of trauma or the situation, it may take more than one session for someone, or do you see immediate impact usually in that first session?
I hate to be an it depends guy, but it
Yeah.
depends.
Mm.
Uh, it depends on how long the person has rehearsed the trauma in their minds.
Mm.
Some people, something bad will happen to them and they do their best not to think about it. And that's actually a very healthy thing to do.
Mm.
Because of that process that I just explained to you, fractionation, each time you go in, that neural network gets stronger and stronger and
Yeah.
stronger. And so you're building a bigger web of stuff that someone's going to have to clean up one day, you know?
Mm.
And so it depends on how long a person has been with the problem. But I would say like one session will be very powerful. 2 sessions will get even more stuff out. Um, 3 sessions, you should be good to go.
Mm.
But it depends. Again, it depends. Some
Yeah.
people may require it longer, and some people may only need 30 minutes. It really depends on how long you've rehearsed the problem.
Mm.
So unfortunately, I can't give
No, no, yeah, that's totally understandable, and that makes sense. Depending on, yeah, I guess how processed or unprocessed, that pain and that grief and that trauma will affect them. Now, have you seen situations where they've had those, that mind body spirit connection where it starts manifesting in the body, causing debilitating pain or illness, and when you clear that mind block, you start to see the body heal? What kind of experience have you had with that?
yeah, I've had some interesting things happen for sure. When you start messing with the most powerful part about you, things
Mm.
start to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, was working with a guy who had chronic back pain for years
Mm.
and just went away. And
Wow.
you know, he thought he was there to work on work trauma. And, and we worked on that. But when we really uncovered the dark stuff, which was stuff with his dad, that's when it started to get better for him fast. One lady, I think she had MS, and she had really bad leg pain. We worked on a few traumatic memories from her childhood, and the leg pain just kind of vanished, But, people can rebuild their issues, that's an interesting thing. But, for her, I watched it disappear in that session. I have another client who was afraid that he had lung cancer because they saw a node on an ultrasound. And, he was waiting to, hear back on whether, what they should do and, get further measurements on it to see if it got bigger. But we started digging, and I use a book. I use Louise Hay's Heal Your Body. You've probably heard of her. And there's another one. Her name is Yvette Rose. This book right here, Metaphysical Anatomy. It's worth its weight in gold for anyone that is curious. We looked up lung cancer to see if what that entailed, and lung cancer deals with, according to Miss Rose, not feeling free and feeling confined. And what were we working on? A marriage where he did not feel free, he felt confined. So we expedited our work on that, and we got really serious with that. He's unfortunately, love him. He's had a lifelong, he just has a list of multiple traumas that we've been working on. So we were working on those at first, but then we really jumped in and started working on feeling confined in the marriage. And I don't know if it was ever lung cancer, but the next time he went back in, that node had shrunk considerably. So interesting things happen. I was working with a lady who was really angry with her best friend. I forget what the reason was. We cleared up the anger with the best friend, and her best friend calls her the next day. There's a synchronicity to these events. You clean up the subconscious, the universe tends to speak to you and follow your lead.
It's really amazing stuff, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing to watch. I mean,
yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to see. I can't promise any of these results, that would be a bad business decision. But they happen often, and they happen more often than you would think. Interesting occurrences when you clean up the subconscious.
Have you had clients that come to you and they seem as though they want to improve their life through this process, but then they don't want to let go of the trauma because it's part of who they are?
Absolutely, just about everyone. The biggest hurdle that I have with people is getting them to accept that every person in their mind is them. So the trauma happened 20 years ago. It happened 30 years ago. It happened when they were just little kids, right? And they're still upset with dad. They're still upset with mom. And to forgive them would be the greatest sin on earth. But mom and dad have been dead for a number of years, and they're still walking around with this anger. So who are they really angry with, right? And so oftentimes, the biggest hurdle is convincing them that, you have to make peace with the mom within you, with the dad within you. There's a holographic imprint of both of those people within your mind. Until you come to peace with the mom or dad within you, you're never going to get over this. And, what I often say to people is, when you forgive someone else, you're actually forgiving yourself, because, that event could have just happened 20 seconds ago. But if you're thinking about it right now and that person's left the room, you're doing it to you, right? And so that you automatically created a holographic imprint of that character in your mind, and now you're using it to abuse yourself right now. So you have to heal all characters within the mind. Until you do so, there's no moving forward. Does that make sense?
How do you, because this is what your job is, and it entails hearing all of these traumas, how do you release all these traumas from yourself?
Well, the same process that I use on other people, right? I recognize that that person that I just worked on who had the horrendous rape memory is now living rent-free in my head, and their
Mhm.
experience is living rent-free in my mind.
Mhm.
So I have to do the same process on myself that I would do to them. So I recognize it as a trance state, I break it down, and I change it. Um, yeah. So basically, I just same thing I do to them, I have to do to myself almost immediately after sometimes.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, sometimes I don't do it fast enough. Sometimes I think, oh, fine, I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna watch TV.
Right.
And that's usually a mistake. It's like, no, I need to clean that up. I need to clean that up right now because some of the stories you hear, yeah, they're pretty dark. And like,
Mhm.
you don't want to think that the world is as dark as you hear it might be. And but when you start working with people like, yeah, there's considerable darkness out there, and you got to clean it up,
Right.
especially when you get inside your head.
Sage yourself.
Yeah,
Listen to church bells.
yeah, yeah,
There's ways to get rid of it because it's like
Yeah.
some kind of dark energy and it can
yeah,
attach itself to you.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I believe it.
Now,
Absolutely.
now, Patrick, do you find yourself being intuitively guided to what you feel? So, if someone's dealt with multiple traumatic experiences, are you intuitively guided to which you feel would be the most crucial to start building upon to release that one first, or how does that process work?
It's hard to describe. It's my teacher kind of described it as a learned knowing. Once
Yeah.
you start working with people for a
Yeah.
long time, you just kind of know,
So
right?
yeah, so it is your intuition then. You are so do you consider yourself like an intuitive? Are you tapping into psychic energy? What's your experience with that? And would you say, that's kind of what you're because to me as a medium, that's what I feel you're tapping into. I feel it's an intuitive psychic energy that's kind of leading you in that.
I mean, that very much may be the case. For me, though, it's all about patterns, and you
Mm,
start seeing the same patterns over and over again.
okay.
Like, I can recognize a cutter, people who cut themselves. I can just
Mhm.
like for the science, I can just see it. Um, People that were raped often have a very similar physical mannerisms, and they communicate in the same way.
Mhm.
Uh, and so you just, and people that were abused by their parents, lots of similar physical characteristics, like um, you just start to learn how to spot them, and you just start seeing it, and
Yeah.
you just start recognizing patterns. Is it intuition? Maybe, I don't know, but the the similarity between people who have experienced severe traumas, um, you know, is shocking sometimes in how
Mhm.
similar they all are. And so, when you see a person come in and they start telling you, like, you kind of know where the story is about to go.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, I usually sometimes people, have these things happen to them, and they don't want to talk about it with me because they barely know who I am, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, one of the things that I'll do with all my clients is offer them like what I call a no content session. It's like, do you have anything that you don't want to talk about, but you need to work on? You don't have to share me any details, and we can still get through this. And I'll guide you out of what's going on inside your head. And most people take me up on that. And
Mhm.
and so that's a way for them to get through some of their severe, like, sexual traumas and whatnot.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, is it intuition? It very well may be. Um,
I
and
would I would definitely say you're definitely tuning in.
yeah,
Definitely tuning in.
yeah, and I think maybe just my concept of intuition may need to be tweaked because
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that go into it. Maybe it's more than just a sixth sense, and maybe it's just
Yeah.
being observative and seeing all these other things as well. Um, but yeah, you start to pick up on things for sure.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's very interesting, the connection, the neuroplasticity, that mind body connection. Now, did you ever think you would be doing this? Like, were you tapped into to this type of stuff? Were you one of, were you one of those guys that wanted to know how the mind worked, wanted to understand psychology, sociology, like growing up, or was this something that just, your soul was calling you into and you kind of got pulled into it?
I think I always played around with the idea when I was younger, but then I kind of dismissed it.
Mm.
I was a teacher for a while, I was an EMT for a while. Um, then I was a freelance writer for a while. Um, I just kind of fell into this work again because I needed it. And,
Yeah.
there I was like, I want to stay here. I like this.
Mm.
But the mind, yeah, has indeed always interested me. I remember when I was a young man, I used to love doing, have you guys heard of hemisync?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
The
Yeah.
concept of hemispheric synchronization just
Yeah.
fascinated me to no end.
The
Um,
hemisync and the binaural beats and all
yeah,
that good
yeah.
stuff.
I was like,
Yeah,
that's
those
cool. That's really
translates.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But my wife, she would say she saw it coming a mile away.
Mm.
She would always joke with her friends, don't tell him your dreams because he'll interpret them. And he's usually tell him your dreams.
It's good.
No, and again, it's just, at the end of the day, everything's metaphorical. And, our lives are more like novels than any of us would like to admit. There's
Yeah.
somewhere that likes to make things rhyme and match up. And,
Well,
it's,
isn't it like life puts us on this roller coaster ride of this journey so we can learn and have the experience, to be there to help others. I think we all have to go through our own personal journey before we can be there for others, and understand ourselves. And it sounds like that was kind of what your path was. It's interesting you talk about being a teacher and an EMT because they're two of the career paths that I see a lot of very intuitive people go into, and a lot of natural healers go into the medical system, or doctors, nurses, chiropractors, and I have a lot of them that come to me as clients, and it's funny because I do see that same energy in you,
yeah.
and it's funny because you have a very strong entrepreneurial energy too. I do feel like you're kind of someone you have to move in your own, your own focal way, that your own focus, your own form, your own. I feel like you would be doing yourself a disservice if you were putting this effort and this energy into something for someone else. You definitely have that entrepreneurial energy, and it's a really good positive energy, and I definitely think there. Are you writing a book? I'm just curious. Is there a book or like a kind of like a program that's in the works? And I just, it's funny being on the show and us being two psychics. I just feel that energy around you. I feel like there's something in the works that could be big and help a lot of people.
There are rumblings in my consciousness. I have ideas. I haven't fully figured out how to mesh them together yet.
Mm.
So I'm working on that. It's not on the forefront right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are rumblings and I have ideas, but once again, I haven't really figured it out yet. So
Yeah. No, you definitely need to let that unfold. You definitely need to sit with that, let that unfold, because there's going to be some powerful energy in that. Absolutely.
I
appreciate that.
sense that your strongest characteristic is your compassion because you have so much compassion. And when you came on initially, you had a very strong shield that you put in front to protect yourself. And I don't know if that's just like how you approach things, or if you didn't know what to expect, but it was there, and I was like, oh, what's going on here?
Well, the funny thing is, see, my perspective on that would be, I think that's just kind of the way your natural energy has built to protect you. Obviously, as a medium, I feel like sometimes I go into a similar energetic feel when I'm going into an event or a gallery. But obviously, you're dealing with a lot of heavy energy, and you have to do something to not absorb that. And I think we do build that kind of force field around us to some degree.
I wasn't saying anything negative.
Not negative in any way.
I just saw it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is interesting," because I didn't know what you were gonna kind of unravel here. I didn't know
what comes to me around that is you really understand the energy you're putting out and the energy you could be absorbing, and you kind of put that shield up before you,
Protect it,
so you can
yes.
discern it. You can discern that energy, and then because I feel like your energy's pretty open.
Yeah, no, now it is. I think it was now, no, I totally think he was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll share.
But it's funny because
I think what you're picking up on is doing podcasts is kind of new for me. And so there's probably a nervous energy there that takes a second to settle down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'll answer that question, but I'm good. I'm happy to be here and I'm having fun. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I think this is amazing. I didn't even know this existed. And it's funny because some of what you said, when I work with a client, I do some of the same things that you're saying, but I just don't have the same labels for them.
Hmm.
It's pointing out like or it's bringing attention to whatever event that brought them to me. Because usually it's one thing and then we look at it from a different perspective and then it doesn't seem so powerful.
Hmm.
Take it
Hmm.
away. But it's not the trance thing, the trance situation or circumstance you explained. Is that like, are they hypnotized or is it just an energetic, you're conveying something energetically?
So hypnotists a long time ago realized that it's not what trance are you in. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. It's not are you in a trance, it's what trance are you in?
Oh,
You're always in a trance.
okay.
And so, it's just we go from one trance state to another. Right now, I'm in my podcast trance. I'm answering questions, right? But so am I hypnotizing people? No, people hypnotize themselves and they hypnotize themselves all day long. Um, like if you've ever found yourself doing dishes and you just get angrier and angrier and angrier, well, you're putting yourself further and further into that trance. And it's again, part of that is because of what we call the memory reconsolidation window. You can either make things better in that window or you can make things worse. And so when you go into that memory and you light up those neurons, and you don't go there to actively change things, but you go there to contribute the same energy, well, guess what? They get stronger and they get stronger and they get stronger, right? So when I have people associate with a traumatic memory, they're going into that trauma trance, right? And so they're remembering what they saw, they're remembering what they felt, they're remembering what they heard. They're using all their five senses, and when they remember everything that was involved with that memory, the faces of the people, what was said, the sensations. They're putting themselves in the past. Remember, like I said, the subconscious, it does not understand past. It does not understand future. It only understands now. So when you go into these memories and you go further and further into those and into what you remember, to your subconscious, that's happening right now. And so you're in your memory trance. And so we break it down, we break it apart by saying, okay, notice what you notice, and then come out. And like I'll direct your focus to something else, ideally to something either relaxing or funny, right? If I can make a person laugh after going into a traumatic memory, it's going to collapse it really, really fast. It's not uncommon for someone to say, it's a 20 out of 10, and then suddenly it's a 6 out of 10. Things are a lot significantly better. If I can make them laugh and start confusing those neurons, that's when the magic starts to happen. But yeah, to answer your question, no, I'm not hypnotizing people. They hypnotize themselves.
No, I didn't know. That's why I'm glad you explained that because, yeah, wow.
Now, if someone was dealing with, past trauma and they weren't ready to come to you and they're sitting there, they're listening to the show, what should I do? Would there be, a 1, 2, 3 things that you could recommend to someone that before they see you, maybe this is some type of self-care or some type of mindfulness or something they could do to try to get them into the mind frame to be able to say, okay, I'm ready to share this experience, or I'm ready to break through, or I'm ready to at least acknowledge it?
Well, here's what I would say. If you're reliving the trauma on a daily basis, you need to start recognizing that that's what you're doing to yourself.
Mm.
The trauma happened. It's not happening right now. So who's doing it to who? You are, right? So if you are constantly making yourself feel bad with the past, I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic, but I'm saying that at a certain point, you have to take control of your brain, right?
Mm.
No one's going to give you control. You have to take it. So if you are constantly recalling a significant event that just changed who you are, you need to recognize when you're doing it and not let yourself, you need to make yourself do something else. Make yourself do something else. If you're walking around just constantly angry, well, then when you feel that anger trance going on, make yourself watch 5 seconds, 20 seconds of babies laughing on YouTube, kittens fighting puppies, whatever it takes to make you laugh, right? To break the trance of that traumatic memory. And what you'll find is if you're diligent about this, those trauma trances will start coming on you less and less and less. But does that mean like, oh, that's all I have to do? I don't need to work on this? No, you should probably still go in and like do a deep clean, because whatever is left behind, your brain is going to project onto the future, right? All of this is about changing behavior. I can't literally change the past because the past is an illusion at this point. I can't change what doesn't exist, but I can change what you hold within you. And when you change what you hold within you, it changes everything. It changes your perception of who you are. And it changes what you believe will happen in the future. And if you believe what will happen in the future is a good thing, then we've done our job. But if you're anticipating more horrific events, more trauma, more abuse, more disappointment, well, then there's probably something in there that we still need to go back in and clean up. And when we do, those negative perceptions of the future will start to fade away and will be replaced with optimism, which is what we want. We want to change your behavior right here and now. It's not so much about the future. I mean, it is about the future, but it's more so about right now. We need to change what you hold within you right now. And the future will naturally course correct when we change what's going on within you right now. Like a metaphor that I often use for people to kind of understand what this work is about. After that horrific event when I was a young man, my brother and I went on the AT, and our backpacks easily weighed well over 100 pounds. And I think I might have weighed 140 pounds at the time. And so we were hiking the Appalachian Trail, and we'd been out there for 2 weeks. And I remember we went to a shelter one day, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I realized I had bruises everywhere the pack touched me. And so what I did was we took all the stuff that we didn't need anymore, and we just left it behind and we threw it in the trash. But you know what? The next day that I went hiking was the best day, because I had changed what I was carrying. And so this work changes what you hold within you so that you feel lighter, happier, and more at peace. Once again, I can't change the past. I can't change that which doesn't exist anymore, but I can change what you hold within you and what you're choosing to carry with you day by day. When we do that, we do that by going back and changing the traumatic memories. Now, does that mean I only do big T trauma stuff? No, like what's the worst thing to happen to you is the worst thing to have happened to you. You don't have to have witnessed a murder. You don't have to have been raped. If it was bad to you and it's impacting your behavior now, let's go in and clean it up so that, you can be the person you want to be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's a really powerful message. And I hope anyone out there that's listening, if you need someone to speak to, or you want to look into neuroplasticity, look into this mind-body connection, how you can heal, break through if there's a mental barrier, some kind of energy block, chaotic traumatic experience, absolutely look Patrick up. I think it's a very powerful message. I think you have a calling. I truly believe this is your soul's calling, and I think you're gonna help a lot of people break through that barrier that's keeping them down or holding them back. So I think that's absolutely great advice, and I hope anyone out there that's listening, will take that to heart and utilize some of that and be very present. And if you need to rewind this episode a couple times and listen back, it's all there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I believe I found my calling, and it's nice to have that feeling. For so long, you kind
Yeah.
of float around and you're trying to figure things out, and when you find that thing that energizes you and that you could work on all day long, then you found your calling, right? Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. What one thing I'm curious about, I know in your background and the stuff that Mary Amy wrote up, you have a Edgar Cayce mentioned in
I was
there.
about
Was
to
there?
ask him that.
That's why I'm psychic, right? What? So talk a little bit about that because I'm fascinated by Edgar Cayce. So Edgar Cayce, Edgar Cayce.
Remind me what I said. I know.
You said you studied with Robert Monroe and Edward Cayce. It's on your website.
Yeah, on the mind body connection, the powerful force of our thoughts, and that thought connection, was that something that kind of led you into this mind body connection? Or I mean, because Edgar Cayce was huge into that mind body connection, and I just
And he
find
would
his
do
work
these
fascinating.
trances. He
Yeah,
would go into a trance.
yeah.
Yeah, he would. I have to attribute that to my mom and several spiritual mentors I had growing up. We would often go to the Virginia Beach ARD on the weekends and hear people
Mm,
talk and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I've read through his books, like a lot of his readings on healing and stuff. He
mm.
gave a lot of practical advice on healing that, people just kind of blew off, and then science confirmed it later on.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but any personal connection with Edgar Cayce, I can't say, but I will say that, you know, I was around his material all throughout my life. And so
mm,
it's kind of ingrained in my psyche. And so like there are things that I just kind of accept that I often have to explain to other people. It's like, no, this is true. You kind of need this, in your life.
that's
Uh,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Was your family open to like the metaphysical and aspects of spirituality and all that? What was that connection like?
My mom definitely was, or is.
Mm,
Yeah, she was the one who would take me to, the ARE on the weekends, and I would get books and, read those books, throughout the week. Um, she's pretty good astrologer, at the end of the day. Um, my dad, he's always been kind of quiet, but stuff's going on in there, and like, he's
mhm.
definitely processing things differently from other people. Um, but yeah, so I kind of grew up around it all my whole life, and then so when I started doing this work, it was just kind of like a natural thing, just like connect back with this community, and see if they'll understand this material and appreciate it for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. Robert Monroe made a big impact on me for sure. Um, yeah, I studied all of his books, and continue to do the Wave series, to relax at night. It's one of the
Mhm.
best series to really reconnect and ground yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Now, what is your experience with the Silva method? Because for some reason, I keep on being drawn into. I don't know if you're familiar with the Silva method, or you probably. I,
I have a cursory understanding of it. I don't
mm,
know it well enough to discuss. If you
that's definitely something you should check out. It's interesting because I find there's some similarities, and I think you would find it very interesting. And it
It's definitely if my understanding is correct. It's definitely about not resisting and like going to where the pain is, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Kind of being that conduit, letting it flow, letting them uprise through, the emotions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about that mind body, that mind body connection, and what manifests in the mind, can manifest in the body, or those, thoughts become things, and that whole, I just find a lot of that seems very interconnected in what you're speaking about.
Yeah, thoughts can definitely become things. That's something that I would get on board with
Mm,
any day of the week.
yeah.
Uh, if people are even more curious, I would even suggest looking at Larry Nim's Be Set Free Fast. That's a modality that I've started kind of leaning into a little bit more every day. With that technique, you can give your subconscious commands and say, like, when I say this word, I want you to get rid of this thing that bothers me in my mind. And it works better with beliefs. And what I found is when I use this on my clients, we can attack the beliefs associated with the memory. And once we've gotten the beliefs out of their head, the memory has already collapsed. So there are multiple ways to go about healing. You can go
Mm.
about through the belief structure, or you can go about it through the memory structure.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's funny how they're all connected. If you get rid of the memory, the beliefs will collapse. You get rid of the beliefs, apparently the memory will collapse too. And that's a very, very interesting healing modality if people are interested. Larry Nims, check him out. He's awesome.
Mm. Have to look him up. I'm not familiar with his work, but it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I think people kind of considered it too good to be true, and so it never really swept the nation. But I've seen nothing but good results with it. It's
Oh, wow.
it's amazing. I've cleaned out a lot of interesting stuff. In fact, I don't if you'll forgive me, I have a story with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Women came to me with money issues, and so we were doing the memory reconsolidation, but then we kind of leaned into the Be Set Free Fast method, or BSFF, and went after all of her negative money beliefs.
Mm.
And then at the end of the session, she suddenly started crying. What's going on? Why are you crying? She's just like, in my mind, I see my mom. It's like, okay. And she's like, I'm able to hug her. And I realized, oh, all of her money scripts were tied to mom. And when we cleaned up the money scripts, she was suddenly able to forgive mom.
No, wow.
That was one of the best healing experiences I've had the fortune to be a part of. It was awesome. It was really cool. Wasn't even going after it, but at the end of the session, not only had we cleaned up her money scripts, but she was able to forgive mom.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think that's just great advice for anyone, anyone out there. Just if they can dive in and kind of open to it, whatever that pain, whatever that trauma is, there may be stuff in there they're not even aware of or thought they, got through or dealt with, and it's processed, and all of a sudden it comes up, and now can get rid of it for good. So that's
Yes.
that's got to be such a powerful experience, for the client having that occur and having that happen, having that experience with you.
Yeah, it is. I've had people come to me wanting to work on past life stuff. And, who am I to say that it's not true? I don't know. Maybe it's not. But I used the same technique on them.
What have you seen come up? What type of stuff have you seen in like the past life connection?
I can't remember their past life story well enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
I would say that same situation that with the BSFF, cleaned up the past life memory. Suddenly they were more at peace with people that they know in this life. So from my perspective, that past life was acting as a metaphorical expression for something that needed to be resolved in this life. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I don't know. But there's a synchronicity to this, right? And when we cleaned up the past life memories, they were able to reach peace with their relationships in this life. Weird stuff often happens, again, when you clean up the mind. Weird, beautiful stuff. Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Would you?
I'm sorry, Mary.
No, I was just going to ask, would you say, since most everything that your clients are coming to you about, not most everything, but we'll say some of your clients come to you about trauma, it's always had the strongest emotion that they have? You said anger, but isn't it fear as well? Because they're fearful it's going to happen again. They're fearful of what happened. Or
here's the thing about fear, though. No matter what happened, you want revenge, right?
What?
So no matter what happened, you usually want revenge.
Oh.
So fear can usually be traced back to anger. And so, yes, there is often a fear emotion that we need to clean up, but from the ego perspective, fear goes to, not to sound like Yoda, but fear turns into anger, right? You know, anger, fear leads to anger, right? So anger is often another layer that presents itself when you start cleaning up the weaker emotional states, you know. And once we clean up the weaker emotional states, anger often arises. It's not uncommon. But you know, funnily enough, that will often lead straight into grief. You know, there are just so many layers to our dark emotions that you peel one off, you think you're going to be good, but then suddenly another one comes up. But I would say that fear is usually pressed anger for sure. Either something that happened or something they did. Yeah.
Anger.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have some dreams tonight. After this conversation.
Dreams are a wonderful thing to work on. And you know, if you have a traumatic dream, you know, like we were saying earlier, to the subconscious does not recognize past or future. It also does not recognize reality and fiction. So if you had a traumatic dream, that's just as important to clean up as a real life event. You know, but dreams are also repressed emotions for sure. But sometimes we have dreams that just kind of catch us off guard, and yeah, we got to clean those up too sometimes. Yeah. And you know, when we clean that up, usually it will also lead to a memory that needs to be cleaned up as well. But they're good places to start for sure.
Very, very interesting.
Very interesting. Can you tell us what you offer? I didn't write that down from your website, but can you tell everyone, our audience, what you offer at healingmindshift.com?
Well, a variety of things. But you know, if you're curious about, you know, how my work may be able to benefit you and you just want to learn more, but you're not really ready to commit, I offer free discovery sessions. So you can just book a 30-minute call with me and we'll just sit down and we'll talk. And again, if you have things that you need to work on that you don't want to tell me about, that's okay. We can still talk about the process and what you can expect. But you know, I offer you know, one-on-one sessions. They're 2 hours long. It's $200. But I get through a lot of memories in 2 hours, and you're gonna feel noticeably different after 2 hours. You know, an interesting thing that happens when you do this work is like if you've been walking around with, you know, a lot of anger, a lot of trauma, and then it's suddenly gone, you'll feel a void, right? And so you have to kind of remember, why did I come here? You know, what was I looking for? And you have to let your mind sink in on that. It's like, who am I trying to become? What am I trying to do with my life? Focus on that. But you know, because you know, 2 hour session with me, I'm going to clean up a lot, and you're going to be like, where did all that go? Right. And so there's going to be like an absence, and you're going to feel like you're in limbo for maybe sometimes a day, sometimes 2 days. But within that time period, just kind of focus on who you want to become. So I kind of got off topic there. I offer 2 hour sessions. I'm sorry. And there are package deals as well. You know, if you decide you want to do 3 sessions, 4 sessions, or 6 sessions, there are discounts if you sign up for multiple ones. But you know, generally offer, you know, private one-on-one sessions for $200. And again, I get through a lot of trauma in 2 hours. You know, just lay it all on the table and we'll get through as much as we can. And you're going to feel noticeably different. Again, it's not about lying to yourself. I'm not asking you to lie to yourself. I'm asking you to change what you decide to carry with you day by day. And because your brain, it holds on to traumatic memories to keep you safe, right? You know, it's like, this may happen again, so we need to be on guard, right? When we change the memory and we rewrite it, you know, your brain, it forgets. God, I forget what the latest number they threw at me was. I think it's like 99.7% of your life it forgets. So why not let these traumatic memories also fade into that other 99%, right? And replace it with something good. So again, yeah, we're changing what you hold within you. We're not asking you to lie to yourself. We're asking you to change what you carry with you day by day.
Powerful, powerful stuff.
Love it.
www.healingmindshift.com. Is that the best spot for anyone that wants to find you, get interest and information in your services? That's the best way for them to reach you?
It's a good place. I'm also on Instagram, Healing Mind
Okay.
Shift. You want to email me, patrick@healingmindshift.com. But yeah, you just find me on my website, and I've got more videos on there explaining the process. I talk about the science and what you can expect. Got testimonials on there so you can see, like, yeah, he's being honest. I've got video testimonials. So yeah, check me out. If you have something that's been weighing on you, come to me. I'm pretty sure I can help you out. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Patrick, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I find it fascinating because there's so much similarities between what we're doing and what you're doing. And there's definitely a lot of it interconnected. And I would absolutely say intuition is definitely one of those things, that intuitive, energetic connection. But no, you're doing some powerful work there. And definitely there's a lot coming up for you. I would definitely say. But yeah, thank you so much for being a guest on Two Psychics. We really appreciate your insight, your information. It's been very fascinating.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys. Thank you.
I'm very grateful that you came on tonight. Thank you so much. I think the 2-hour session sounds lovely. It's a great idea to me.
Yeah, like I said, I get through a lot of trauma. So if you've had stuff that's been bothering you, we'll get it out of your head so that you've got rainbows and butterflies in there instead, right?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Everyone out there, Patrick Ward, www.healingmindshift.com. You can be found on Instagram. It's Patrick Ward on Instagram.
Just Healing Mind Shift.
Healing Mind Shift. Is that on any other social media, or is that the best spot for them to find you?
It's so much to be good at one. I'm trying to get good at one first before I go to the ones.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to make sure when I get on Instagram, I'll be following your page.
I appreciate it. Same here.
I'm following already. I think Two Psychics is as well.
Nice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
After that, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much.
So when we're ready to do a symposium on mind, body, spirit connection, you're going to be on that list to come up to New York and be part of that.
Man, I'll be there.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
sounds good. All right, we appreciate that. HealingMindShift.com. Everyone, check Patrick's work out. He's doing some fascinating stuff, and it's been a pleasure to have you on Two Psychics.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a good one.
You too, Patrick. Thank you.
Night.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I'm really leaving now. Bye.
Here's the funny part. Okay, that was really great.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's fascinating.
I can talk to you about one of my dreams. I'm definitely going to try. I'm going to do the. You're doing the call. Use the free introductory.
Ready for a session.
I know. I'm going to be like, hey, we were just on tonight. Can we help me out? And then I'm going to do. I would like to do the free discovery when I'm ready. Free discovery session, and I'd like to do the 2 hours. I think it's interesting because I definitely have done a lot of my own reconstruction of my past experiences, and some of it's floated away, but then there's like a little thing that's left that's poking at me every once in a while. So I need to do. I met him for a reason, so I need to do something about it, because I did a lot of different different modalities, practitioners, everything from psychologists to people that worked with your your space, your energy, and changing that, and hypnosis, just a lot of stuff. Okay, everyone. So if you want to reach Michael Edley, IVethespirits.com. If you want to reach me, MaryAmyOfficial.com. All right, what do we have going on? Well, also you can get some of our merchandise on Two Psychics Radio through Spreadshop. Who do we have upcoming? Well, we have we have someone that I'm actually going to be meeting with tomorrow, who is a guest who is supposed to be before Patrick, but she's going to be next week, Stephanie Potter. And she's a spiritual channeler, intuitive guide, and Akashic record guide. So I am working with her tomorrow. So I'll be able to tell you about that experience.
Cool.
We have Eric Vanderlaan, who's a ghost hunter, paranormal hauntings. That's coming up. Then we have like a whole series of people involved with extraterrestrials and UFOs and paranormal. On June 26th, we have Daniel Alan Jones, and he's all about strange phenomenon. He's a UFO investigator. We have July 3rd, Solma Ara, a Palladian channel, another Akashic Records, but Ascension reader. July 10th, we have Frank S. Milburn, who's an Intel veteran, author of Pentagon's UAP Task Force. July 17th, I'm filling that spot. I don't know who it is yet, but somebody's coming through. July 24th, we have Dana Louise, who's an experiencer and UFO abductee, and she's an author. And July 31st, we're going to have Edge Magazine. It's called The Edge Magazine. Kelly, who's the editor, she's also she does mediumship. She's an intuitive. I think she might have mentioned astrology. She said a jack of all trades. So she's going to come on. And then the following week, we're going to be on her show live. So you'll be able to see us live. And if you want to call in or you want to write in the chat, she does a live. And I think it's on YouTube. And that's called...
Oh, lady, get a reading.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty exciting. So we have a lot of upcoming events with these different interviews, and we're talking about Michael and I talking about doing a psychic fair together. We have a bunch of different events that we're going to be doing together. You'll be hearing about.
Lots and lots of stuff coming up. It's going to be a busy summer.
It's very exciting. It's very exciting, and I'm very grateful to there's moments that I sometimes start to cry a little bit, and I don't know if it's happy cry that I met Michael and that we've done this, because I think it was predestined. I believe so. And if you were to watch our relationship, from meeting each other, and then just how I went to this psychic fair and I had this issue and I just started talking to him about it. I felt like I wanted to talk to him, and then I did these interviews and I interviewed him, and then I just stayed in contact with him and interviewed him off and on different times through the years. I have to tell you, it's almost like it was kind of inevitable. And he was the right person because I had trust. He always was to his word. He always was professional, always consistent, and he was grounded. And he was very, very good at being a medium. So, and we just had like an instant kind of communication. Maybe it's past life. I don't know. I'm very grateful is what I'm trying.
We may have been on many journeys together.
I'm very grateful because he's a very good, nice person. And
I appreciate that. And that's likewise. That's likewise. That's why we're on this journey. And it is sure unfolding to be a very interesting journey.
yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And also my puppy dog Elsa is grateful. You said to give her Pedialyte, and yes. I also gave her ground turkey, and so she's okay. And I'll talk to you about that. I'll text you about what ended up happening, but it's much better. So she's out of the woods.
That's good. Good news. Good news.
So.
All right. Well, anyone that wants to check us out, Two Psychics on Facebook. Yes. MaryAmyOfficial.com, eyeofthespirits.com. Check us out. And we'll be back next week with another episode.
Yeah, we have 2 interviews, it looks like next week, so we'll see how I put those out. But so it's Two Psychics podcast.
Two Psychics
On
podcast. Make
Facebook.
sure you put it in your notifications. And if you're
Okay.
following us on any other station, any other platform, just make sure you put your notifications on for Two Psychics and the latest podcast. You don't want to miss it.
Okay, thank you everyone. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. And happy summertime. Here we are. It's June. Be well, light and love.
Peace.
Bye.